Alright, I'm going to work a flake for my friend Robin. This comes from Comal County, Texas. It's a flake of tabular chert, and it's raw. Okay. Pretty straightforward as far as the material and the flake goes, but it looks pretty easy, but the ease can be deceiving, or the appearance can be deceiving. But I'm going to nap it with steel because it is raw, and usually I have better results with steel, but we'll see. I might switch over to aluminum. Yep, typical hard chert. It's not a root beer, or what we call root beer, because it's not dark enough. It is similar to root beer. It's also similar to agate. And someone asked me to nap some agate, or if I had ever napped agate. And what he probably meant was, have I napped the agate that's available commercially from Indonesia and other places? Yes, I have napped it, but not in the raw state. That kind of slab agate is not nappable in the raw state. It's not like this kind of agate. You know, this reminds me of the agates we can find around here in Texas. Now it's got a curve in it, right? So I gotta lose length in order to straighten it out. If you look, the center line of the mass does not include this tip part, so it's not going to be as long as this. How long is it? 4 1/4. It's not going to be that long when I finish because I got to lose length to take the curve out. Now, back in the day, they left the curve in order to preserve length. There may be other reasons to leave a curve in it, but I think the main reason is to preserve the length of the flake, if that's what they start with. Curved flakes are very common. So if you start with a curved flake and you want length, obviously you're going to have to leave the curve in. But I'm not going to leave the curve in. I'll thin down the tip as much as possible to get it as long as possible. But I'm going to have to lose length at least a little bit. One other thing that's deceptively difficult is to run flakes to get rid of the original surface. But my solution to that is just leave some of the original surface on there. It's not like it's got writing on it like a bottle bottom or some sort of pattern or design. With bottle bottoms that are curved, you kind of do want to take off the original surface because sometimes it has little markings or little designs or doodads. You don't want that on your finished piece in most cases. Some people like to have little doodads and stuff on their points to signify what type of bottle it came from or whatever. Yeah, that's fine. Perfectly okay. Even if it's a little weird, you know. It's alright. It naps well. See, it's translucent, so it's a semi high quality. We'll see how high quality it is once I start thinning down the really thin piece, or thinning down the really thin biface. The challenge is taking a chance with it, not knowing if it's snap in half chert. Some of this Texas chert is easily snapped in half when you're working it. Unexpectedly easy to snap in half. So I gotta tiptoe. It doesn't seem like it is easy to snap in half. Seems pretty strong. Seems to be so far. So far, so good. Yep. Just got to get rid of the cortex. Standard procedure. You don't have to get rid of all of it. It just can't exist on the edge because the edge is supposed to be sharp. Unless you can sharpen the cortex. If it's of that type of cortex, you can leave it on the edge too. I've seen cortex on the edge. But it's, you know, the type that's very hard. Anyway. Pretty straightforward stuff here. Yeah, Robin gave me a fairly easy piece to knap because it was just a very generic flake. Nothing too special. Nothing too difficult. It's just thin, you know. So what am I going to do? Am I going to take the tip off or take the base off? I'm just going to probably take the tip off. Up here. Yeah, because that's the wonkiest area. So stage 1 is over. It's non-cortical. It is presently non-cortical, which means there's no cortex anymore. So now it's a non-cortical flake. Modified slightly in order to remove the cortex. It's not too difficult to run long flakes on it. Semi-long flakes, anyway. But we still haven't got to the thin stage. You can tell when the thin stage has arrived by the amount of anxiety you get. Yeah. There are some philosophers who claim that emotions are not tools of cognition. Right? I used to believe that too. Emotions are pretty worthless except for helping to ingrain in your mind certain situations. Emotions help to imprint your brain. Well, since I've been flintknapping a lot, I've noticed that emotions also help to determine which stage you're at. You know, when your anxiety starts to increase, you know you're at a stage where it's pretty critical that you don't mess up. And that's an emotion. It is a tool of cognition because it tells you, be careful, something's dicey, something's risky. You're starting to get nervous or panicky or sweaty. Yeah, proceed with caution. Yikes. Yeah, if I install a step fracture on a thin piece, guess what happens? It stays in there. Because once you've got it really, really thin and you can't get any thinner, and then you all of a sudden install a step fracture, that's it. It's got to stay. You don't have any other way to get it out because you've already thinned it down to the max. You got max thinness. Is there such a thing as maximum thinness? Yes, but it doesn't sound right. You know, you max out on your thinness capability. And then once you get a step fracture, that's it. It's got to stay. I'm just going to keep whittling the tip until I can, till I think I can get a straight piece out of it. Now, it's been very hot lately. Like today, it got super hot all of a sudden. And I gotta watch it so I don't get dehydrated. I get dehydrated super easily these days. Oh yes. Super easily. It's a bummer. Well, it also helps when when the humidity is really, really low. That helps to get you dehydrated too. I say helps, but it's like, it's not helping. So what am I gonna do? What kind of point should I make? Should I decide now or just go with what I'm doing? Just for the time being, I'm just going to try to make it thin and straight. But should I be concentrating on what I'm going to make? No. Because, there's lots of points that start out this way with a triangle shape or a leaf shape. Many, many points. Now, going back and looking at prior experiences, should I make it narrow first before I start running flakes? In hindsight, sometimes my points would have been probably more successfully napped if I had narrowed them first and then flaked instead of flake and then damage control it down to a narrow point. Yeah. Well, it's hard to tell what strategy to take with the particular type of material. Both strategies work unless you can't damage control the piece very well. Then you got to worry about what's easier to damage control, a wide or a narrow point. Which is more easy to damage control? A narrow point is easier because you can reach the center easier with the flakes. Narrow points and thicker and narrow are much more easily damage controlled than wide, thin points. So if you're worried about damage control, if you're working tough material, go thick and narrow. As long as it's not snap in half stuff. Snap in half chert and snap in half flint. You go thick and narrow. It doesn't matter how thick it is. It'll snap in half. Long, narrow. You just tap it and it snaps in half. No reason. It just likes to snap in half. You're doing everything right. It seems like everything's going along fine. All of a sudden you hit, somewhere, perfectly reasonable flake removal, and dook, everything snaps in half. Snap in half chert, snap in half flint. Is it really a thing, or am I just inventing a rhetorical situation? No, it's really a thing. Some cherts and flints are highly brittle in that way. And you can never tell until you start knapping it. That's the hard part. If you're out in the field, it's not going to go, hey, I'm snapping half, don't choose me. It looks good. Looks just like everything else that seems to be high quality. But you get it home and start napping on it. All of a sudden, dunk! No more point. Now you got two preforms. All of a sudden, and you're wondering what the heck. What in the world? What in the wide world of Flintknapping is going on? I did everything right and it snapped on me. Yep. And it'll probably snap on you in a way that you would never expect. It'll probably snap right through the thickest part. I even had them snap in half church snap right down the middle this way. While I'm hitting the side, it'll snap in half down lengthwise, not just crosswise. That's how snappy some of that stuff is. So I'm just walking these flakes in. I'm just testing it. I don't want to snap this piece, so I'm being careful. I'm whittling away the tip very slowly until I can get it straight. Yeah, it's just regular tough chert. It is nice because it's translucent. It makes a nice looking point when you're finished, as long as there's no step fractures. Now, can I draw a center line now between the point and the base? I think I can. So this is the stage where I start to thin it in a way that is compatible with the center line of it. Yeah. I don't know how else to explain it. Just remove everything that's not supposed to be there, according to the center line of the piece that I see. I see a center line in there. Come on, come on, come on. From the very tip to the base. So everything that's not the center line, everything that's not, how should I say, parallel with the center line, it's bumpy. Just get rid of the bumps first. It's not going to be perfectly parallel with the center line when you're done, but you know what I mean. It's going to be close. You know, the surfaces are not going to be perfectly parallel with the center line, but it's going to be close. Dogs are not active today because it's too hot. They're being lazy in the shade. Getting it made in the shade. Yep, so I'm just doing some really hard hits on some of these just to get these bumps off. Very similar to removing turtlebacks, but not quite that hard. Not quite that forceful, but it is. I'm in the process of removing little turtlebacks. Yep. And I thin the ends first before doing the middle. That's the secret of avoiding the step fracture thing and avoiding the snap in half type of thing. How does it avoid step fractures? Because you can hit hard enough to avoid the step fractures. One of the reasons why you get step fractures is there's not enough force to make the flake go the whole way. That's one of the reasons. There's not enough force to make the flake go the whole way. I don't know if that's the main reason, but that's certainly one of the reasons why you get step fractures. So you want to avoid that. You want to avoid the wimpy strikes because you're trying to not break it. If you got a thin middle and thick ends, you're gonna do wimpy strikes because you think, or you know, it's gonna snap in the middle. So don't thin it in the middle first. And kind of judge, you know, what amount of force you can get away with. Yeah, that's the hard one. That's what newbies can't do. Cannot judge how much force they can get away with. You're gonna have to break some stuff to know the limits. You can't know your limits till you break some stuff. But don't break it and not figure out what the limits are. You know, I've seen some guys just break points, and then they just dump it. Next, they don't sit there and analyze it. What happened? What did I do? Why did it do that? How big was the flake? Would that flake have traveled further, or did it travel too far? Study every break. Don't just throw it. Don't just toss it. Study the catastrophes. Maybe not every break, but study the catastrophes very carefully. Then yeah, try to figure it out. If you can't, that's fine, but if you can, if you know certain things, like, yeah, it was too thin in the middle, and I hit the middle really hard, and I hit the ends really hard, and I didn't pay attention to how thin it was in the middle, and it snapped in the middle. Yeah, that's not good. Probably because it was too thin in the middle. You know, figure it out and know when you can do big strikes and get away with it. Just make sure the ends are thin, and you can get away with the big strikes. Once you get big strikes in the middle, start thinning the ends again. Don't leave the ends thick. You gotta go back and forth, jump around. You know what? If I just took a big flake from the middle, and now the end up here near the tip is too thick by comparison. So I probably should have taken the thinness, or I should have taken flakes to achieve thinness here before I took that one, but I'm a little out of sequence. It does happen, you know, you don't have to be perfect. That's what I tell myself anyway. Yeah, I don't have to be perfect. Because if I was trying to, I wouldn't get anything napped. I would just get everything broken. It's ironic. Many times, the more careful and logical you are, the less you get accomplished. Because this is a game of risk. There's risk involved. That's why logic breaks down a little bit. And you can be doing everything right, and it breaks. Right? That's why the element of risk messes up your logic, because you're doing everything right and all of a sudden it breaks. Well, give yourself a little bit of extra strength while you're doing this in the material. Make it a little bit thicker, or shoot for thicker points. That way it reduces the risk of snapping. Resist the temptation to throw up looking at a thick point, and just go thicker. And leave yourself enough meat to do damage control if you happen to have a step fracture. And then as it starts to get more anxiety filled, you have to become more and more careful. Everything's changing. It's a dynamic process. It's never the same. As you're progressing, the workpiece gets weaker and weaker. Unless you're not thinning it, then it's not getting weaker and weaker. But if you're thinning it, it's getting weaker and weaker as you go along. You got to change. You have to transition. Can't stay the same. The amount of force you're using has to slightly change. Slightly. Not much. That's why it's so hard to learn it, because everything is subtle. Very subtle. And then if you think about it too much, you'll make yourself miserable. So you try to get into habits. Get into the habit of thinning the ends first. Get into the habit of making it more narrow at first. Try not to take flakes that are too long. Try not to remove the original surface if it'll interfere with your progress. It's better to have some of the original surface than to have a broken point. Same with glass bottle bottoms. It's better to have a little bit of the bottle bottom original surface still on your arrowhead than to have a broken one. Even though it looks like it, even though it makes you want to throw up by looking at it, because you don't want to have that little doodad on it. It's okay. It's a finished point. Have some joy in the finishing. Yeah, this stuff is not bad. It's holding together all right. But I can't speak too soon, because if I speak too soon and if I get too cocky, I'll install step fractures. Yeah. Like right there. I might be able to push that out, but you never know. It could be a permanent fixture. That little stepper. More and more I'm depending on my little X-Acto popper outer. Not X-Acto, my little utility knife popper outer. Bet you didn't know you can sharpen them, huh? On a sharpening wheel. Yeah. Get under it and try to pop it out. It's not popping. It's tough chert. It doesn't work all the time. Some people say, you're not doing that right. That's why it's not working. Get your act together. Not doing it right. Am I doing it right now? Am I doing it right? Huh? Now you already ruined it. Supposed to do it right the first time. There's always an explanation why something doesn't work. Whether the explanation is right or wrong don't matter. There's always an explanation. has to be always an explanation, or the guys that explain things would be out of business. See, I just went. It fanned out enough when I took that flake diagonally. It fanned out enough to clip that step fracture and pop it out, so I didn't need to use the utility knife popper router. So I didn't need to do it right. I did something else. Didn't need to worry about doing it right. No. Is it good now? Is it good? Can we move on? Brady napping. Yeah. How do you get rid of that? You get rid of it with hand sanitizer or naphtha. It's alcohol-based ink, so you can use hand sanitizer or rubbing alcohol, but I prefer to use, not naphtha, acetone, fingernail polish remover. Acetone is what I like to use. Yes, yes. I should remember that easily because it has the word acetone. You know, they say if you attach a curse word to what you want to memorize, you memorize it more easily. Yeah. Not making that up. It's not curse word, it's cuss word. Cuss. It rhymes with bus. Now, I say curse word sometimes, I say cuss word sometimes. I don't know what it is. I think I like curse word better. It sounds more dastardly. Curse word. Curses. You know, the expression curses foiled again. He doesn't say cusses foiled again. Because, you know, he wants to say a curse word, not a cuss word. But he just says curses. Right? That's the whole thing. That's the explanation of what is correct. So you guys that say cuss words, it's not right. In my opinion, you know, I don't know if that's even related. When someone says curses, it could mean that they've been cursed in a literal sense, and they don't want to say the bad word. They're worried about the curse of death, that sort of thing. Who knows? Can you see what I'm doing? I don't have my brown background, so you should be able to see what I'm doing. This type of brown shirt, or brownish, it doesn't show up very well on a brown background. So I opted for being lazy and not putting that towel down, and guess what? It worked out well. Now, it's not symmetrical. What do? It's not symmetrical. It's lame. Well, I'm just gonna unlamify it. You guys know what unlamify means, right? If I say stuff like that. It's a napping term, yeah. If it looks lame, you gotta unlamify it. Alright, what is the measurement? It was 4 1/4. It came down to 3 1/4. Yeah. That's probably predictable because if you were to go back to the beginning, or if I were to go back to the beginning and draw a center line, I probably would have to lose 1 inch off the tip. Yeah. And it's thin, so I got the most out of it that I could. I'm thinking that's the most I could get out of that one piece. Now I just need to make something that looks finished. And talk smack about some people. Yeah. Call people names. Yeah, because that's what I do on this channel. It's not real Flintknapping, but it is real name calling. Oh yeah. And it's real losing tools like a dork. I don't know. I've got a big stack of tools over here. I have all of them in one place, except the one I want. Where's my spatula tool? See, I got this one, but I want this version, but in the spatula. Where is it? I have a feeling that I used it to touch up something, and it's not in my... It's not stacked up here. Where is it? I have to turn the video. Ah, there it is. Come on. It's in between a bunch of stuff. Yep, I used it. I must have used it last night to do something. I'm amazed I haven't even used it to this point. Yeah. So what have you learned about this particular piece? Something very similar to learning what we learned on glass bottle bottom. You're going to lose some length if you want to preserve straightness. Now, if you want to, or if you want to achieve straightness. Now, if you want to preserve length, you got to leave some of the curve in. And learn to tolerate some of the curve. The more curve you leave in, the longer it is. And if you needed just a knife, you can leave the curve in, it doesn't hurt it. And some might say, you're never supposed to leave a curve in there because it doesn't look right. Well, I just showed you some artifacts. If you watched that video, that was recent video. One of the thin pieces that was broken in manufacture had a curve in it. And they were thinning it down. It was going to be a finished piece with a curve because it was already thinned. Very thin. The thinness that finished points have. Yet it was broken, so they had to discard it because you can't really do anything with it, or can't do too much with it that a flake can't do. So they discarded it. You got to keep in mind that these things are competing with flakes. Every point you make is competing with a flake that has a sharper edge and is better suited for the task that you're wanting to do, except what? Except be part of a projectile point system, or a projectile system that includes projectile points. Then you can't just use a regular old flake and be part of an efficient projectile system. Efficiency in hitting your target consistently and accurately. You want to hit your target consistently and accurately. You don't want a bunch of randomness. And you want to know consistently what effect it's going to have on the target. So you don't want all different shapes. You don't want just something that'll look like it'll be able to be hafted, and then haft it and have a bunch of random flakes on the projectiles. I mean, you could, but it doesn't have the same effect. You can't achieve the same high level of skill and the same high level of expectation if it's all random. Expectation of effective killing with your weapon. You have to be consistent if you want to try to increase your skill. It's important. But if you're just cutting, any flake that's sharp will do. So then if you make something just for cutting that looks like a projectile point, you're competing with flakes that might do the job better. So you got to be careful about very sharp edges and stuff. It doesn't have to be straight, but it has to be sharp. And advantageous in a way that you don't have with flakes. if you want to use it as a knife. Now, some people don't care. Yeah, the flakes are good, but I like using what I make as a knife because it's just me, you know. Irrational. It's vanity. Yeah. I'm going to look up vanity and see if that's a proper use for that word. It might be something else. Look at that cute little flake. That's a cute little punch flake. Really? No, it's not a punch flake. It's a pressure flake. How can you tell the difference? Exactly. How can you tell the difference? Some people can say, oh, I know the difference automatically. I can tell. Yeah. We'll see. But they probably won't see it. They won't put that to the test. It's much easier just to say that they know without testing it. Yeah. They don't have to test it. Who's gonna test it? Who's gonna be insistent on holding them to account? Anybody? Does it really matter? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that much. So they can say whatever they want. If they're not right, oh well. What are you gonna do? It's just Flintknapping, just a bunch of randos. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true. It's just a bunch of randos. Just Flintknapping. They can say whatever they want. Don't matter. And they do, believe me. Say whatever they want. Doop-de-doop-de-doo-doo, doop-de-doop-de-doo-doo. It's getting hot in the shop. I turned the fan off. Anxiety is rising because of the notching. And it's getting doubly hot. But I need to finish this so I can work on other stuff. Okay. Is it going to stall on me? I think it's going to stall on me. I'm hitting concrete. I could make a punch that out. Yeah. What is the solution if I don't punch it out? Widen the notch. Sneak up on it from the side. Get it to flake a little bit from the side and then widen it out a little bit without too much pressure. Too much pressure will take the barb off. That was pretty close to being too much pressure. But luckily they just popped out a little bit on top here. You know, the top part right there. It might have taken a little bit off of the barb, but it's okay. As long as it gets it thin enough for me to get in there and push on it. And I'm already creating a burr. Those burrs are the kiss of death. Why? Because it's weak. It widens it and it weakens it. That little burr that hangs over, it's flexible. You don't want that kind of flexibility while you're trying to drive a flake. it messes with the whole dynamic, whatever that means. People use the word dynamic a lot for a phenomenon that they don't really understand. Yep. So why not? Why not? I use it too. There it is. See? Ooh, you didn't see it. I just pushed on that with a non-bird edge, and it popped out another flake. And now I can capitalize on the thinness and then pop some more out. See if I can keep it in frame this time. Set it, pop it, peel it, pop to the side. It's tough. Tough rock. Grind it and crunch it a little bit. Yeah, see? It didn't pop all the way out. It's an incomplete pop out. Dang it. I can try to drive it again. See if that works. Sometimes that'll pop it out if you just keep at it. Usually no, but it's worth it. It's worth a shot. It does weaken it and thin it down. There it goes. It did pop out. So now it's thin enough that I can pop the other way. After a little bit of more scrunching to strengthen the edge. You need to strengthen it a little bit, but don't stall it. Strengthen it a little bit so you can push on it and it'll drive a flake. Like that. Yes. Yes. Is it working? I think it's working. Yep. Got to develop some, I think, got to develop those muscles to do the pressure flaking, or this is not going to work right. Yeah. Why does it keep doing that? I think I'm in frame and I'm not. Can't see, huh? That's you and me both. If I try to get into a position where you can see, then I can't see. And then when I can see, you can't see. So that's a lucky pressure flake. Hopefully you were able to see that. That popped it out all the way around, but failed to take off the barb or the ear. It took a little bit off the ear. Just see that right there? But luckily, it didn't do much damage at all. Yeah. Luckily. And I was working at the top of the notch. So I was pushing in upward this way. Don't push down that way too much because it'll take the ear off. That pop out was originated right there. It popped, but then it tried to walk its way down to the ear, which it did, but it didn't take it off very much of it. Luckily. What would have happened if I took off the ear? Well, I just have to make a different type of point. Yeah, I haven't announced what I'm going to make. Just make a different point. All right, so I'm going to finish it up. I touched the barb, took off a little bit of it by accident, not on purpose. Yeah, I broke it off. Just a little bit of break. I'm going to widen the notch out. crunch widen it. Curl up the ears a little bit. Make them a little bit upward. Yeah, upward ears. Sharpen them. Come on. Luckily there wasn't any big flakes down there. Okay, so what else? Well, I'm going to just do some touch up on the edges of the notches without, hopefully without taking off the tips. I just nicked the tip of that too. Dang it. I got to be careful. It gets blurry if I don't have it over in this corner, because the camera wants to focus in on my hand or whatever's right in front of it. All right. Oh, and by the way, my phone is doing the excess system files thing again. I spent like an hour this morning messing with different things, and the only thing I can come up with is that Google OneDrive is messing me up by somehow storing backups on my phone as system files. Backing up the backup or something, because I didn't really use Google OneDrive until recently. I think it's messing up my storage. And I found the wastebasket for the Google OneDrive, and I empty that out all the time, but it doesn't seem to affect the system files very much. So something's getting stored in the system files that I'm not aware of. And I cleared a cache of all my big applications. I cleared all those caches out. I even deleted all my browsing data, all my YouTube, my Google data. Had to sign in again on all my accounts, and it didn't do anything to my system files. So I'm thinking they're just backup files that are messing me up. So I'm going to do a hard reset again in about a week or so, because it's steadily inching up to almost 90% system files. It started out like 46%. Or even 36% when I reset the phone. Climbed up. It's been climbing. 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Every week or every so often. It just keeps climbing. Driving me up the wall. Anyway. I'm going to do a fancy little flute thing. Hopefully. Why take the risk? Because I'm a risky guy. It's risky. When you watch videos, I do risky stuff. Voila. I like those. I didn't really do much to thin it down, but I like them anyway. I like those bold pop-outs. Yep. All right. Just to satisfy my vanity. Yeah. I have vanity. Oh, yes. You didn't know? Now you know. Isn't that immoral to have vanity? I don't know, is it? I should talk about morality. That's a big subject during my videos. I can annoy even more people. Yeah. I You start talking about morality, that'll annoy a lot of people. It'll be a lot of fun. Oh, yes. Is it fun to annoy people? It's fun to annoy certain people. It's not like everybody. It's not really people. It's certain kinds of people that it's fun to annoy. Yeah. Who are they? The annoyers, of course. You annoy the annoyers. You annoy the annoying people. Those are the ones you're supposed to annoy. Yeah. You didn't know? You didn't know the rules? You're mean to the mean people. You annoy the annoying people. You are not tolerant of the intolerant people. You try to control the control freaks. On and on. That's the rule. Yeah. That's what you gotta do. That's the moral thing. Right? How else are you going to know what to do? That gives you, that gives you the guidelines right there. What is it? It's kind of like a Frio point. I exaggerated this base notch because I wanted to see how far I could go with it. That bold flake helped me to thin it down so I can pop it out more. But yeah, it's a Frio type. I could, flatten the base a little bit and it'd be more like a Ensor Frio, but no. I like the rounded. Looks like it's got two boots. Yep. Let's see. Do a little bit of a needle tip. Can I do a needle tip on this? A little bit. A little bit. Why do I want to mess with it? Because it's a nail biter. I like them. I like videos that are nail biters. Yeah. Really? No, not really. Let's push it a little bit. Push it a little bit. See, I try to manage the risk. Is it worth the risk? Is it manageable? Yeah, it's manageable. But I am taking a risk that it's going to ruin the tip. It already looks a little bit curved. It's curving downward in that view. In order to straighten it, I got to lose the very tip. I don't know how I managed to make it curve downward. Well, you'll say, because you're trying to put a needle tip. Let's see if the different arrangement of the light will help. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it does help. Okay. Ooh, it's starting to look sweet. Yeah. It's starting to. For a while there, I was not being persnickety about the tip on a lot of these points. But that's my pet peeve, is the tips. If I don't do the tips right, I don't feel right. And if they break when I'm trying to do it, I don't feel right even more. So it has diminishing returns if I'm too persnickety on the tips. Yeah. Diminishing returns is not good in Flintknapping. I kind of dulled it. Did I dull it? That's the opposite of what I need to do. See, it looks a little bit crunchy, but it's already an hour exactly, so I'm done. Yep. Didn't know I could time it so good, huh? That's it.